This past summer, I had the pleasure of revisiting some old friends at Graymalkin Farm, Jean and Philip de Gruchy. If you've ever dreamt of leaving the city for some clean country living, you've come to the right place. For Jean and Phil, their dream was realized in 1985 when they left Toronto and purchased this 20-acre property complete with an 1870s barn and farmhouse.
This barn is an old barn. It was built somewhere in the 1870s. You can see from all the axe marks on the pillars. And it always gives you a comfortable feeling to walk into this barn. It's had a lot of history to it, and a lot of hay, and a lot of animals, and a lot of people.
Luckily, the land adjacent to the barn was an ideal location for herb gardening, and the fields to the east and south for growing their rows of herbs and everlastings. After 11 years of experience with the land, Jean and Phil have become respected experts in the area of herb gardening.
It's called niche farming as a matter of interest. We do a very specialized type of farming and very specialized methods. Most of it very labor intensive, which in a big farm operation would be discouraged because it simply costs too much. But when Jean and I basically run it, we can absorb the cost in sore muscles and all the other stuff that goes with it.
Theirs is a year-round business that involves growing herbs and flowers and then drying and preserving them.
Well, this is the area where we dry the flowers and we hang them in on wires in the barn. And in so doing, once they have dried, which usually takes about 3 weeks, we then take them and store them in our storage area.
The de Gruchys also operate a store right next to the barn that keeps them busy throughout the long winter.
All of these things don't appear during the summer months by magic. We work throughout the winter. The pomaders that you see here, I sit in winter evenings making with oranges and cloves and put them along little strings along our railing, and put them in paper bags, and the cat thinks it's wonderful. He bats these bags around. And a lot of the other things as well are done through the winter. The dream pillows and the bath bags. I make the little sacks for the bath bags through the winter. So we never really stop. There's always something buzzing around in your head that you're going to do for the shop in the spring.
And like the sweet-smelling potpourri that Jean so creatively puts together, life on Graymalkin Farm is altogether sweet for the de Gruchys.
I certainly wouldn't choose any other life. This is the kind of life that I like. Being out in the open, and you know, they say nearer to God and so on and so forth, but whatever it is, it feels right.
Well, Jean, now we know a little bit about you. What I'd really like to do is tour your garden. This is such a very special place.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. It really is special. And I'd like to take a tour, but before we go through your famous garden gate, what is this plant? It's so prolific.
It's Clematis virginiana, virgin's flower, and it's a really lovely clematis. It has a really interesting seed head as well.
It's one of the few plants in your garden you can't eat or dry.
I have tried drying the seed head, and it does dry quite well. Yeah, so.
Leave it up to Jean to figure out how to dry the flower. We'll talk more about that another time, but I really want to come on down here for a moment and let's talk about basil that's not just, I gather, good to eat, but ornamental as well.
Some of the dark purple basils are really beautiful, and you can see the opalescence in this leaf. It's just really gorgeous.
It really is.
This one is Reuben, which they've developed to take the place of dark opal, which you'll see as we walk along the pathway over here. Okay. Dark opal's been germinating with a lot of green in it, and you find that with a lot of the basil, so they won't germinate purely.
Do you remove the flower as it develops on basil?
Yes, we keep the flower head off until I've finished doing all the jellies that I need to do. Once it's flowers, it thinks it's fulfilled its mandate and stops producing.
I see. You don't want that.
No, so we keep the flower heads off.
Now, how does the flavor of the purple basil compare with the green basil just over there?
Well, they all have subtle variations.
Really?
The opal, I think, almost has a kind of an anise-like over taste to it, whereas the crispum over here, or lettuce leaf, definitely has a lettuce flavor to it. In one leaf, you can make a whole batch of pesto practically with some of the plants.
With one leaf, a whole batch of pesto? That's a lot of batches.
Some of them are just huge.
You could feed an army with this little planting right here. On the other side of the path, and by the way, I love the way you did these paths with the gravel. Do you have any trouble keeping weeds out of this?
Well, this is a practical solution for us. It's less expensive than
Down here.
a lot of the other things that you can use for pathways, and we find that we use Roundup on it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Just spray it with a broad spectrum weed killer.
Yeah,
And,
well, Roundup has a non-residual effect, so it's
Right.
not going to do any harm to anything.
Right.
And we do keep things in order with that.
Parsley.
Yes, this one is moss curled. Looks lovely.
It does.
I prefer Sherwood, but I wasn't able to get the seed this year. Sherwood isn't quite as curled as this one, and so if it rains, the soil coming up into the parsley isn't as gritty, you know, and it's not as hard to get out when you're going to use it. And this one goes a little yellower. I just prefer Sherwood for the flavor.
Do you? Well, I've noticed that curly-leafed parsley is being used more and more now in amongst ornamental plantings with annual flowers.
Well, you can see how beautiful it is.
It is.
I mean,
It's
it
very
really is
ornamental
lovely.
and great in a container, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go for a little bit more of a walk
Okay.
here. There's so much to see at Graymalkin Farms. Now, what do we have here?
This one's root of graveolens.
Rue.
Has
And
a-
how do you use it? I'm not familiar with it.
Well, the small leaf can be used in a salad, but it's primarily a strewing herb. They used to put it on the floor of sick rooms because it has antibacterial properties, and thieves would wear bundles of it around their necks when they were robbing plague victims to protect them, and they made a wine of it called the Wine of Four Thieves.
There are about 4 stories right there.
Oh, yeah, well,
so much to
there
see
are
here.
more, actually, because it was called the Herb of Grace and was used in the service of absolution in the Roman Catholic
You're
Church
a
to
walking-
sprinkle holy water. So
You're
there
a
we
walking,
are.
talking encyclopedia. I can't believe it. Well, this is the lower garden, and these are hops of all things.
It's a beautiful golden hops vine.
I bet you many of our viewers didn't know hops, which is used, of course, in the making of beer, is actually a vine.
Yeah, oh, and there are a lot of different cultivars, too, which give the different beers their flavor. Each one has a little different flavor.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Okay, what do you call this garden?
Well, this garden is based primarily on annuals because in the early part of the season there are a lot of alliums in there which die back.
Alliums being onions, of course.
The onion family, yes.
What's your favorite plant in this garden?
Oh, well, that's really a difficult thing to say.
It's like asking your favorite child.
Oh,
Which
it
one is
is.
your favorite child?
Well, the Salvia horminum, the clary sage that's down there, that's an annual, sometimes called painted sage, normally is the showpiece of this bed. But we've had such a time this year. 3 times we've had storms that have eroded the plants out of the bed.
Too much moisture.
Yes, and I had to replant them. Fortunately, down the back, I keep an insurance policy row of plants, and I kept replanting. But look at the perilla. I mean, that's Perilla frutescens there, and it's just so gorgeous.
That's
You would think
fantastic.
it looks very much like purple ruffled basil. but
Oh,
it's,
yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought it
yeah.
was.
No,
That's beautiful.
But the leaf has a real glow to it.
Mm,
And I love it in combination with the orac, which is the tall annual in the center there.
right.
That's a plant that you can use in a salad, a small lease-up,
Yeah.
and it makes a wonderful hedge. I would say it rivals boxwood, and the price is much better.
I love it. Jean, thanks so much. It's been a great pleasure having a tour of your garden. I've really enjoyed it once
I've
again.
enjoyed it thoroughly too, Mark.
You know, there are days I'm sure I'll wish that this was right in my own backyard.